recording. Oh, yes, it's beginning. Okay, good. And what about the share screen? Can you, you need to allow me to share screen. Let me see, hold on. Up.
Okay, I think it's fine. Maybe after the introduction, you can just start sharing this
Okay.
thing.
So yes, so we start. It's a pleasure to be here moderating this May's MRN monthly section, the Mentoring Research Network. We have been doing this every month with interesting topics. And today we'll be talking about research ethics. I'm Vanessa Góes. I'm the Executive Secretary of Mentoring Research Network, together with Mona Elzerbini, the Director, Samuel Abimbola, co-director, and Tajuddin Youssef, the Executive Research Manager, who will be speaking today. MRN is an action team, part of a coffee, this organization, which I'm very proud to be part of. A coffee means African Community of Planetary Partners for Health and Environment. So we have the co-founders joining soon. They are like dealing with technical problems, but Nathan Utzman and Nightingale Wakigera. And I'm glad also to be part of this of the executive team, together with Nathan, Nightingale, Mona, Walia, Lungu, and Percival. I disappeared. Hold on. Oh, God. And so, yeah, so with no longer delays, we will be talking about research ethics, which is a very important issue. Okay. And so Yusuf will be talking about historical records and unethical research, and how this burdened some guidelines and measures needed to adopt by researchers in the conduct of research, principles guiding research ethics, challenges of research ethics, including the challenge that we are facing currently with the artificial intelligence, and also opportunity available for us to ensure ethics in our research. Nowadays, it's very important. I will pass the word to Mona, which is our director. I just would like to highlight the importance of this topic, considering that to go ahead with planetary health, we do need to work with transdisciplinary research. And for that, we need to do a cross-link between natural and human science. It's very important. If you look to our objectives, the Sustainable Development Goals, if you look to all of them, it's a mixture of humanistic values and also natural and biological issues. So ethics become a center point, and the Rockefeller Commission on Planetary Health also brought that imagination, like a conceptual revision. It will be very necessary and to move forward. And within this this job that we have to do, ethics gets a very central part, since we need to change our mindset and the paradigms in all systems of humanity's knowledge and actions in the world. So I'm very glad that we are talking. We're not talking about the emerging technologies like ChatGPT and 3D printing, robotics, so it's very important to go further and to discuss more about ethics in research. So I'll pass the word to Mona Elzerbini, please. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for your wonderful background. And I will build on what you have already said, that first of all, on behalf of the Mentoring Research Network, it's a great pleasure to welcome all of you to this important gathering on research ethics. And together we can emphasize the significance of ethical practices in research and its vital role in shaping the future of African researchers and the Global South by extension as a whole. So in this era of ever advancing artificial intelligence that Vanessa had highlighted, and this evolving technology that's really shaping the research landscape, new tools, methodologies are for sure empowering us to ask complex questions and to uncover groundbreaking insights on how to use these advanced AI tools in research. And also, we need to be very careful that these advancements come with ethical challenges that we must confront head on. It's our responsibility as researchers to ensure that our research practices uphold the highest ethical standards and promote the well-being of individuals, communities, and the environment as part of the mission of ACUFI, Africa Community of Planetary Partners for Health and Environment. So as a director of the Mentoring Research Network, I firmly believe that research ethics is not merely a box to check or a formality to complete. In fact, it's something that really compass and become a guide of our work. And we need to be very clear about this and to ensure that we navigate our research endeavors with integrity, transparency, and respect for all stakeholders and the indigenous communities within. So by upholding ethical principles, we can foster trust, build stronger collaborations, and contribute to sustainable development, as Vanessa has said. So in today's meeting, and as I have been discussing frequently with Tajuddin Youssef, we decided to uphold this meeting specifically on research ethics and this dilemma of its impact, the impact of AI advances on it. And Yusuf will say a lot on this, but I just want to highlight that because of the vitality of this topic, our esteemed executive research manager himself will be leading this discussion because we feel really responsible as a network to highlight all these advances and how it can impact our research work. So I urge each and every one of you not to miss a moment of this engaging and thought-provoking session. And also to watch the recording if you didn't have the time to or if you have any challenges connecting with this meeting. And in closing, I extend my sincere appreciation to all participants joining today and for your commitment to this topic of research ethics. And together we can pave the way for a brighter future of research in Africa and the Global South. Thank you so much, and I wish you a productive and enlightening meeting. Back to you, Vanessa.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Mona. Since we started a little bit late, I will introduce Yusuf and start the presentation. I will be sharing the screen very soon. So Yusuf Tajuddin is a public health researcher with a professional background in microbiology. He's currently a graduate student at the Department of Epidemiology and Medical Statistics, Faculty of Public Health, University of Ibadan in Nigeria. His research interests focus on addressing the health threats attributed to climate change and infectious disease in a holistic One Health and planetary health fashion. As an executive director and coordinator of scientific research of African Community of Planetary Partners of Health and Environment, Mentoring Research Network, a promising initiative of young African scholars, he has a robust publication profile. And has delivered a number of papers in various scientific meetings across the world, in tackling the key elements of the health threats occurring in the human-animal environmental interface. He is presently serving as malaria and universal health coverage youth ambassador to Nigeria at African Leaders Malaria Alliance and an advocate of One Health and planetary health. So thank you very much, Yusuf, to be with us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for that introduction. And I am so happy to be presenting this topic, research ethics, challenges, and opportunity. So today we are going to be looking at what research is and what ethics is. What are the historical issues that occurs that leads to the formations and the establishment of some guidelines that are bounding some of the research that we are conducting today? And what are the challenges and the opportunities in conducting ethical research? So I'll be taking us through the course of the presentation in the next few minutes. So thank you. Please kindly share the second slide. Okay, so during the course of my presentation, I will be following this outline, the introduction to research and ethics. So I'll take us through what research is and what ethics is. So also I will delve on the importance of research ethics, the challenges of research ethics, and how to address the challenges involved in research ethics. Then we'll now move forward to the ethical consideration in research and the opportunities of research, of ethical research. Then we'll after this, then we'll open a case study whereby we are going to treat together and identify the ethical issues in the case report. So please, the next slide. Now, before we cannot jump into research ethics without understanding what research is all about. So if we're talking about research, then it's not a new thing to us. So research is a systematic investigation to describe and explain an observed phenomenon for the sole aim of what? Contributing to generalizable knowledge. So when we say research is a systematic investigation, so this actually means that it is a step-by-step process to describe and explain and observe phenomenon. If you are in a particular environment now and you are able to observe that, okay, the rate of maternal child health is actually, the maternal death in this particular area is on the high side, then you are actually observing a phenomenon. But if you take a step by investigating what are the issues surrounding, what are the issues affecting maternal child health, what are the predisposing risk factor, why are maternal child health increasing, then definitely you are actually conducting an investigation. Then after conducting such investigation, what do you want to achieve? You want to contribute to generalizable knowledge. That is, for instance, if you are in Egypt, for example, and you understand that, okay, this is a factor driving maternal child health, then you come down to Nigeria, you observe this is a factor driving maternal child health. You go to Kenya, you observe the same thing. Then if you conduct your research and you are able to identify that, okay, these are the factors contributing to maternal child health, then you can now, you can achieve the aim of generalization in the sense that you'll be able to conclude that these are the factors responsible for maternal child health. So the sole aim, one of the important goal of research is to contribute to generalization. So although there are some research in which generalization is actually not the ultimate goal, some such as the qualitative research, which deals with description of phenomenons and stuff like that. So to conduct a researcher must identify a gap. So you cannot just come up and say you want to conduct a research without identifying a gap. For instance, we conduct a research on malaria in Africa because we identify that some of the measures we are putting in place, such as the insecticide resistant and the insecticide treated nets, the use of the anti-malaria drugs, we identify those measures are actually, these parasites are defining some of these epidemiological measures. Then that's a research gap. So now we are looking for a lasting solution, a sustainable solution. Then definitely, then we can see that in the development of this vaccine, the out-into-hand vaccine and the RTSS. So we are trying to fill a void. So if you don't identify a gap, then why are you conducting a research? So the purpose to conduct a research, you need to identify a gap. So thank you. So now, if we are trying to conduct a research, what are the processes or stages involved? The first is develop a research plan. If you observe a particular phenomenon in your surrounding, that okay, maternal child health, what is actually causing it? Okay, you now identify that what is causing maternal child health in my particular area is due to is as a result of inadequate access to health care. You know, you've identified, you've observed that, okay, this is what is causing it. Okay, what is causing inadequate access to health care? Maybe resistance of the population due to their lack of trust in public health system. So you've identified that gap. So then you develop a research plan. That is a proposal. So in your proposal, you have your introduction to that particular phenomenon that you observe. Then you come down to let us know your objective, some of the objectives. Okay, what are you trying to achieve? Then you come down to the methodology. What method are you taking to how are you going to conduct this study? So you come down with the methodology. Then after coming down with your methodology, then you let us know how you are going to analyze your data. If you are, like, for instance, if you come down with your methodology and you are adopting a qualitative or quantitative approach to data collection, we know that. So the next thing for you to tell us is how to analyze your data. Are you using, what software packages are you using? Are you using EpiInfo? Are you using Stata? Are you using SPSS? So you let us know how you are going to analyze this data. Then the last part is you try to provide us your expected outcome and then the references. So after coming with your proposal, so in your proposal, then the next thing for you to do is you submit this plan for review. In Nigeria, we have this the ethical review committee. So they are the one concerned with the review of your proposal. So they check the proposal if it's in line with ethical, if it is in line with ethical standard, then they approve it. If there is an issue with it, maybe in your methodology or in terms of your in terms of how you want to obtain data, then they will definitely call you to attention to revise your document. I think in abroad they use IRB, Institutional Review Board. So Iola, can you please can anyone try to, can anyone try to correct me if I'm wrong? So in Nigeria, we use the ethical review committee, but in developed country, I think it is our IRB, the Institutional Review Board. So after that, you focus, the next thing is information collection. I think I've said this, you collect your data. Are you performing a laboratory experiment, or are you conducting a field work? If you are conducting a field work, then you need to let us know how this information will be collected. Is it through a survey? Are you conducting a survey, or are you conducting a focus group discussion? Conducting a survey means that your data is quantitative, and if you are collecting data that would, you can also collect your data through qualitative means, through a focus group discussion. Then analyzing and interpretation of data. You tell us the document that you want to use to analyze data and then interpret your data. Then report writing, you present your information, maybe in form of thesis, in form of manuscript, dissertation, and stuff like that. Then you disseminate your findings through publications, conferences, workshops, by letting people know what you've achieved at the end of the day. Please, the next slide. So now we conduct research, but most of this research that we are conducting, are we following ethics? So what exactly is ethics? So if we, by simple definition, we can say ethics can simply be defined as the determination of what is good or bad. So if you are doing something good, then definitely you are actually that is a good ethics. But there's nothing like bad ethics. So ethics is generally about what is good, the determination of what is good or bad. So the next slide, please. What research ethics is. So research ethics simply means what is right or what is wrong in the process of we conducting the research. If we are doing something good, definitely we will know. And if we are doing something bad, then we know. Because if you are doing something good, definitely you want people to meet you there and to like a kind of praise you. So you even do more in the presence of people, what we refer to as autumn effect. So if you are doing something good, you want to do more in the presence of people, but if you are doing something bad, then you definitely want to hide it. So that's what ethics is all about. So in the process of conducting research, if we are doing something, research ethics refers to guidelines that govern what is right or what is wrong before, during, or after conducting a scientific research. So if you are taking some measures, if you are doing some things that are actually not right before or during the process, for instance, before conducting the research, if you write your proposal, you may come up with a kind of fabrications. You may lie in terms of in your proposal that, okay, this is what this is what you want to do, this is what you want. You may try to like bring out, input some information that are not correct. So, and during the process of research, if you are conducting a research on people and you know that the intervention that you're actually subjecting people to will cause harm for them, but you decide to continue that research, then it's that's actually wrong doing research. And after conducting research, like for instance, you need to if you conduct research now, you need to give feedback to your participants on the outcome of the result, but you fail to do that. So that is wrong. Compliance with some rules, guidelines, regulation, and principles. So there are some ethical principles that are actually guiding the conduct of our research. So, but some of these principles these principles didn't just come up in a day. There are some circumstances that actually led to the birth of some of these principles. So, and we are going to look at some of the circumstances. For instance, example of the horrors performed by the Nazi doctors. So this is an example of a kind of unethical research that led to a particular ethics guideline. So the horrors by Nazi doctor, the first one is the freezing experiment, and the second one is the gun wound experiment. So what really happened in the freezing experiment? So what happened was that the Nazi doctors during that time, I think during the beginning of World War II, so the Nazi doctor, they were trying to determine the survival time after parachuting into cold water of the Atlantic, the North Atlantic Ocean. So some victims were actually immersed for hours in tubes of ice water. So others were fed with salt water, with only salt water, and some victims were actually kept outside, unclothed, in some freezing temperature of I think around of freezing temperature for like 12 to 14 hours. So why some were actually sprayed with cold water. But the funniest thing about this experiment was that no attempt was made to relieve these victims of the tremendous pain and suffering caused by this experiment. These researchers, these doctors, were actually focused on achieving the outcome, a particular outcome. And what was that? What was the outcome? Just to determine the survival time only. But they subjected these people to a kind of to a detrimental to a kind of a situation that is not okay for them. So another the gun wound experiment, they were so these doctors again, they were trying to determine the most effective way of treating gunshot wound. So what these researchers did, this doctor, what they did was like they just they what they did was they were inflicting the victims, they inflicted upon the victims by gunshots, by stabbing or amputation. They inflicted wounds upon these victims by gunshots, by amputation, and or by I think they also did a kind of stabbing. So they infected wound on these victims. The victims are actually prison inmates. So they infected wounds on them just to determine the most effective way of treating gunshot wound. So after infected them with the wound, they now treated them by various techniques. So after this experiment, something happened. After the World War II, at the end of the World War II, so the International Military Tribunal then they prosecuted some of them, the Nazi war criminals and the doctors that performed some of these experiments on these prisoners. So because the experiment wasn't ethical in the sense that some of these prisoners were not informed of this kind of research. They were just the researchers actually performed the experiment without informing them, so putting them into greater harm. But at the end of the day, the tribunal actually prosecuted some of these Nazi doctors, and 23 persons out of these criminals, including 20 doctors, were actually tried, and 15 were found guilty, while 7 were sentenced to death. So as a result of this, during the process of trial, after the trial, then the Nuremberg Code was actually vetted. So this code reveals ethically acceptable medical research on human subjects. So please, the next slide, please. So this is the picture of the Nuremberg trial. So we can see that this is actually a courtroom, and these people are actually being tried. Some of these doctors they were actually tried because the experiment they performed actually violate human rights and even put some of these the victims at risk. And yes, so the next slide, please. So they were tried. So this bettered the Nuremberg Code. So the Nuremberg Code, one major thing that we need to notice about the Nuremberg Code is that the code focuses majorly on informed consent. Although the code is 10, right? It's a 10 code statement, but the main purpose of the Nuremberg Code is to emphasize the importance of informed consent. That is, informed consent in the sense that people need to be aware of the kind of research. Like informed consent takes place when a competent person who is invited to participate in the research take a voluntary decision to participate in the research after he or she has been presented or has been provided with adequate information in a language that he or she understands. Okay, you bring out a form, you give it to person, and the person, for instance, now the person speaks Hindi, and you present the information on the research that you want to conduct in in the language. So the person will be able to understand that, okay, this is what this person is trying to do. So he or she may give consent or decline consent or fail to give consent. So depending on the situation or depending on how the person feels, the research will affect him or her. So the November code, the first one is voluntary consent of human subjects is absolutely essential. If you are conducting a research, voluntary consent is important in the sense that people must have the liberty to say that I want to engage in this research or I am not interested in this research, no matter the benefit of it. So you don't force people into research. So the second is the experiment should yield a fruitful result. If your experiment is not yielding a fruitful result, then why are you conducting such an experiment on people? If you cannot contribute to people's health, you don't need to like try to subject them to more harm. So if you cannot improve their situation, it's better for you to leave them. So, and the experiment should be designed based on previous results of animal experimentation and knowledge of natural history of the disease. So before you conduct a research, especially clinical trials on human participants, then you should have conducted such a research, like such a trial using animal experimentation. So the result or the response from the animal experimentation will serve as a guide for you in determining that, okay, we can conduct this research on human participants, but you should not start with human participants. Now, for instance, we've been hearing this issue of monkeypox. We've heard that there is a clinical trial going on. So it's not it doesn't make sense for you to start the trial on human participants without conducting the trial on animal subjects. So physical and mental suffering should be avoided. If you are conducting a research and you know that this research will cause harm physically to your participants or try to like cause mental suffering to them, it's better to avoid such research. For instance, you are conducting a research on neonates on mortality among children. So you know you are going to like interview the mothers. So if you are conducting an interview and you notice the mother of the child can no longer go with you, maybe she's due to emotional issues arising from her losing her child, it's better for you to like stop that kind of research at that moment for her to, so you can actually come back, but you don't continue that kind of research while she's in such an emotional state. So experiments should be conducted by competent researcher. Yes, you should be competent while conducting research. If you don't know what you are going to do, then while conducting such research, then withdrawal from the study should be allowed. You don't force people to engage in research and you don't force them to remain in your study. It's not allowed. Voluntary, like people can actually withdraw if they feel they can no longer cope, or possibly if the research is no longer okay for them, if what you are doing, or maybe they are actually experiencing a kind of mental or physical suffering during the process of the research conduct, then they are free to withdraw from your study. You don't coerce people into research. So please, the next slide. Now, another study here is the Tuskegee Civilly study. So this is another case of unethical research. So what really happened in Tuskegee study was that what really happened there was that a prospective study was actually conducted among 300 African American men in 1932. So with the case of syphilis, we all know syphilis to be a bacterial infection caused by Treponema pallidum. So, but what happened was that these men that we are seeing in this picture, they were not informed of their diseases. nor were they told that the research would not benefit them. So they were deceived into receiving treatment for bad blood, septicemia, that made like the doctors told them that they have bacterial infection in their blood. So the doctor told them that that's what they were being treated for. So the doctors did not told them the reality of the study being conducted on them, that the study is actually on syphilis. Even though they were trying to conduct this to determine how long can syphilis, the long-term effect of syphilis on these participants. So that was what they were doing. And even despite the availability of penicillin and antibiotics drugs for that works actively against syphilis in 1943, these people were not given that treatment. They were not given that treatment despite the availability, because they want to achieve their goal, they want to achieve their goal of determining the long-term effect of syphilis in these participants. However, so they were also denied treatment, even despite the availability of penicillin. But a journalist exposed them. So they were later, the journalist exposed them by saying this, that by exposing what these doctors actually did. So, however, Bill Clinton actually tendered apology for this unethical research, and that ends that way. But what was the consequences of the syphilis of this study? So it led to additional 4 principles on ethical research. So the first principle is respect for person. So that you need to show respect for people, in the sense that allow them to determine if they are willing to engage in research or not. So another is the principle of so the respect for person, like in the sense that you should always know that people have right for self-determination. They can make a decision on their own, and individuals also have right to voluntarily decide whether or not to take part in any research. And they can even withdraw from some such study without suffering, without undergoing any suffering. And at the same time, so for beneficent, for the second principle that was developed in response to the Tuskegee syphilis study was the principle of beneficence. So beneficence actually refers to the researcher's responsibility of ensuring that benefit is maximized and harms or risk is actually minimized. So the principle of beneficence was actually developed in response to that participation in any research involves risk and benefit. However, the benefit should always outweigh the risk. So the third one is the principle of non-malfeasance. So this actually emanated from the Hippocrates, one of the Hippocrates oaths, or possibly one of the Hippocrates principles, that cause do no harm. So if you are conducting research, if you cannot make the situation of the participants better, do not make it worse. And one should not injure one person regardless of the benefits that may occur to others. So the third principles that occur, please can you share my my screen so that the principles can be displayed? Okay. Oh, I think the principle is on the other slide, but don't worry. The third, okay. So the fourth principle is justice. So this implies that the burden. One important information that I will also emphasize regarding justice is it requires that special attention, like special protection, should be provided for the vulnerable groups when you are conducting research. Who are the vulnerable groups? Example of the vulnerable groups are the elderly, the young ones, the homeless persons, and the prisoners, and those with mental suffering. You know, these people, like those with the mental sufferings, they're actually not in their right mind. So when conducting the research, you look for their relatives so that they can, so that you can get, they can provide assent so that you'll be able to conduct your research. So even for the young ones, if you want to conduct research, like for instance, now you are doing a clinical trial and you are working on a particular drugs and you want to like test the efficacy or the effect of that drugs in children. So you know the children can actually not give you a consent, but you need to speak with their parents. Like you get the informed consent from them. What can only be provided by the children is assent. Not that they will provide you with assent in the sense that they'll write for you. But when you are conducting research, for instance, you want to administer a drug for a small child, and he or she nod negatively in refusing it, like by showing you that I'm not interested in taking this drug. There's nothing you can do. You should not force such a child. So you need assent from the child and you need informed consent from the parent. So once you get the assent from the child, if the child wants to take the drugs and not to you positively, and the mother also agrees that, okay, fine, you should conduct this kind of research on my child, then definitely you have to go ahead. But if the child gives say no to you by nodding negatively, you don't have the right to conduct such research. So that's it. Now let's move to the next page. Now, so this is an example of unethical practices in Trovan trial by Pfizer in Nigeria. So this issue is actually somehow, and it's really a depressing one. So in around 1997, yes, so an epidemic of meningitis broke out in Kano. So, and although there's an existing treatment for meningitis, but during that period, the Pfizer, I think we all know Pfizer is one of the leading big pharma, is a leading big pharma. So Pfizer now took this opportunity to perform a drug trial, the trial of Trovan on Nigerian children. So they took the advantage and conducted a trial for the treatment of meningitis in children. So, however, do you know what one thing that is very funny about this trial was that Pfizer actually conducted the trial like for a very short period, I think for just 6 weeks. So they get the ethical approval and they get the federal government approval and they conducted the trial. But unfortunately, at the end of the trial, 200 children who were recruited for this study, 11 of those children actually died and others became paralyzed, deaf, and blind. So that was so sad. So after conducting the study, you know, one funny thing about these researchers was that when they conducted the study and they left immediately. So even though we have some professionals in Nigeria that were recruited that were actually involved in this study. So, but one thing, what are the unethical practices that some of these researchers did? First was that Trovan, this particular antibiotics was third state. Sorry, it has not been tested in children in the United States because the drugs was actually manufactured in the United States. So it has not been tested in the United States when it was tried among children in Nigeria during the epidemic situation. And Pfizer did not monitor most of these patients properly to know the adverse effect of this intervention. Another thing, if you are doing a clinical trial, you must always involve the DSMB. Those are the Data Safety and Monitoring Board. They need to be there just to check the safety of the participant. But some of these researchers failed to do this. The DSMB were not in place to trial participants. So that was very bad. And there was nothing like follow-up. There was no follow-up study conducted on this participant. So the researchers just came, collect the data and left for the United States. However, even some of our professionals that were involved in these studies, they were unduly influenced in the sense that they were paid a huge amount of money just for them to be involved in these studies. So most of our professionals, when you give them dollars, like when we try to the exchange rate between dollars and naira, then it was so huge. So they were involved in these studies without even considering the issue of ethics. So another thing was, why performing this trial, there was no case of written informed consent. The researchers failed to obtain written informed consent from the parents of some of these children, which is actually bad. So another thing that was also observed was that Pfizer did not give any proven existing treatment to the patient who did not improve after taking the drug. So there are a lot of unethical issues involved in this trial that was done. So, but when Pfizer was actually asked, they said they obtained verbal consent from the parents of these children, because most of these parents, they were not educated. So so another thing was that Pfizer also claimed that they obtained, and the researchers at Pfizer also claimed that this study that was conducted was approved by local ethics review committee. So they were trying to justify what they did, but at the end of the day, I think sometimes around 2011, some of the survivors of this trial were actually compensated. But is that enough to justify for the damages that has been done? So when conducting research, if we don't put ethics in place, then we are actually causing more harms to the people, to the populations that actually have trust in public health system. So please, the next slide. So now, ethical issues in the world of AI. So now it's in this current world of AI that everything, it can now be generated. Every information that you need can now be generated using some of these AI tools. So in using this has become so common that almost every researcher has now focused on the use of AI. But there are some ethical issues involved in using some of these algorithms. The first is informed consent. You as a researcher, can you obtain informed consent? Like if you are using AI to obtain data of people on social media, can you use AI to generate informed consent from your research participants? That's no. So, and if you are conducting a research, informed consent is key. You need to obtain informed consent, but AI cannot obtain that for you. So that's one of the issues. Another is the issue of privacy and confidentiality. The use of AI actually raises concern about privacy and confidentiality. AI, artificial intelligence, is used to analyze data from social media. I'm still on so the next is bias and discrimination. So there's also ethical issues. One another ethical issues with on my network. What is happening?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you again. We missed the part. So maybe you can do like a wrapping synthesis of this slide. Something like that.
So the next one is on the issue of discrimination. So the use of artificial intelligence can also lead to fair and unjust outcome. So for instance, we've learned that artificial intelligence has been used in medical diagnosis. So, and this can actually lead to inaccurate or biased diagnosis for some certain groups, because the most of these algorithms, I don't know if they actually in the process of developing them, maybe they are developed in such a way that they would identify some certain groups and stuff like that, because I read about a particular AI tools that will identify some groups of people and then fail to identify some other groups. So I don't want to mention a particular group so that I won't be questioned. But I think there is an issue of discrimination and bias with the use of AI. So, and this is not allowed in research. So another thing is
Okay, Vanessa, maybe we can read the case scenario for now until
Okay.
Yusuf ensures that his connection is good. So, in the meantime, we have a case scenario of integrity in research. So, until Yusuf's connection stabilize, we can read together this case scenario.
Okay. So, yes. So I'll read it, okay? Or maybe I could also share a screen and then you read together. What do you think?
Yeah, perfect idea.
Okay. Let me just be sure. Yeah, I'm not sure which document will open. Maybe. Just 1 second. I'm just making sure that we'll open the right doc. So victimizing the system or a victim of it. So William Karanga, a 25-year-old research assistant with plans to go to medical school, was comparing a set of data given to him by his much admired senior researcher, Professor David Johnson. The working hypothesis of their lab was that the increased vulnerability to cardiovascular disease that accompanies aging is due to changes in the ratio of different levels of lipids or fats in the blood. The data collected in their recent experiments, however, did not support this premise. Mr. Karanga showed the unexpected results to Professor Johnson, who took the file home with him to review. The following week, Professor Johnson returned to the database to Mr. Karanga with a request that he rerun the statistical analysis now that some mistaken entries had been corrected. Analysis of the new data set now gave results that were consistent with the hypothesis of the study. In reviewing the data, however, Mrs. Karanga noted that all the numbers that were inconsistent with desired results had been changed. When Professor Johnson was confronted with this, he simply dismissed Mr. Karanga and said that his observations were not important. Mr. Karanga shared his misgivings about Professor Johnson's actions with a handful of graduate students and discovered that many of them had also seen suspicious behavior from Professor Johnson. Mr. Karanga then approached Professor James Victor, a faculty member who had collaborated with Professor Johnson in the past. Professor Victor advised Mr. Karanga that no matter how he proceeded, everyone would lose. Even if he could prove that Professor Johnson had altered the data, Mr. Karanga's own reputation would likely suffer as well. Whatever his course of action, Professor Victor cautioned Mr. Karanga he should be sure that he had ironclad evidence before he went forward. This would especially be necessary in light of the fact that Professor Johnson had been recruited to the university because of his reputation as a person who would win grants for the university. He delivered two, securing $3 million in his first year. Mr. Karanga continued to review other data sets and began to see a pattern of data manipulation, including reversing data points, figures for measurements that had never been done, and data from patients who appeared to not exist. It appeared more and more likely that what Mr. Karanga was seeing was not just a few lapses in ethical judgment, but calculated scientific fraud. 3 months later, 3 months after first finding the outer numbers, Mr. Karanga lodged a formal written accusation of scientific misconduct against his former mentor. When Professor Johnson was confronted by the department head the next day, he stated that there was nothing to the accusations and suggested that the many errors were due to the high number of technicians and postdocs who had handled the data over several years. 2 days later, the notebooks and the other material necessary for an investigation were impounded from Professor Johnson's lab. 5 faculty members were picked by the principal of the medical school to mount an inquiry into Professor Johnson's work. The informal examination quickly expanded beyond the initial complaint to include a review of Professor Johnson's computer's hard drive. Numerous interviews were also conducted. Soon, the initial inquiry progressed to a formal investigation, at which point Professor Johnson began to claim he was a victim. He accused Mr. Karanga of being out to get him because of personal difference between them and Mr. Karanga's disapproval of his lifestyle. Professor Johnson's defense slowly unraveled, however, and within 2 years, he pledged guilty to falsifying information on a federal grant application and agreed to pay the university and Mr. Karanga's lawyer almost $200,000. The evidence clearly suggested that Professor Johnson had been committing fraud for over 10 years, though he took responsibility for his actions when he appeared in federal court for sentencing. He pleaded with the court for leniency and a reduced sentence on the following grounds. First, the pressure of his academic position caused him to use poor judgment, as he felt that he would be evaluated primarily by the number of grants and money that he brought to the university. Second, he felt responsible for all the people in his lab, especially the doctoral students and postdocs who depended on him for funding. Third, he really wasn't after the money for himself, but to support others in their research. And fourth, being awarded the grants gave him a sense of self-worth and prestige, which had motivated him to do community service in teaching science to elementary school children. He expressed his intention to continue his service should the court suspend his sentence. So, questions? Yusuf, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
No.
Sorry, my network was actually bad, so I had to switch to another network. Sorry about that. So I feel okay. We should.
Do you think we should go back to? Is it?
I feel
the presentation.
While we continue this presentation, I feel we should continue the presentation, and after that we can discuss this case.
Okay.
Then we treat it together.
Okay, so back to the presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
So the next okay, please okay, the next issue I would like to discuss on is the issue of autonomy and control. I think I'm still on that before my network went bad. So if AI is used to make decision about a medical treatment of a patient, then I think it undermines the patient autonomy and control over their own health decision. So because we've seen now whereby data will be uploaded and for AI to make decision, and that's against the rules of research. So I would also like to mention the issue of accountability and responsibility, in the sense that if AI is used to make a decision regarding a treatment, maybe a treatment regimen for a patient, and such a treatment ends up harming the patient, so who should be held responsible? Who should be held responsible? Is it the AI? Is it the company that developed the AI? Or is it the medical doctor or the researcher that present that treatment? Who exactly will be held responsible? So taking a look at all these the unethical issue involved around the use of AI, then I think we need to rethink or be very careful while using these AI tools in scientific research, because the uses of this AI violate some of the principles of research. So please, the next slide. Thank you. So now, common ethical challenges in research conduct. We've mentioned some of this. So the first one is, okay, this is not the next one. Thank you. So failure of compliance with ethical guidelines. Some researchers are actually more concerned about themselves and not about the population. And some tend to conduct research without following ethics. So this is actually affecting the credibility and the integrity of research that we're conducting, and it's actually reducing the public trust in public health system and even in sciences. So another ethical challenge is data falsification. So data falsification is just a situation by making up data that never exists. Data falsification is by you trying to manipulate existing data. So if you are conducting a research now and you feel like you want your research to fit into your hypothesis, then some researchers tend to manipulate their data so that they will have the expected outcome without considering the effects that data falsification will have on the people, on the population. So that is very, very bad. And another one is data fabrication, like by making up a data that never exists. So you feel like, okay, if you have this kind of data, then maybe, for instance, maybe you won a grant now, and you fail to perform your duty as a researcher by conducting the field work, by getting the needed data. You now tend to okay, fine, you sit down at the corner of your room and you start fabricating data. You start bringing up data that never exists. If such data is used to make a policy, then that policy will definitely affect the population and it will definitely harm them and contributes negatively to the health outcome of the population. So that's also one of the challenges, and it's very, very bad for researchers to focus on such. So plagiarism is another issue whereby the idea of another researcher will be used without referencing them, without giving them the credit. So plagiarism, stealing of another person's idea, is very common in research, especially with the rising issue of perish or publish, the normal slogan in academia that you need to publish. If you don't publish, you will perish as a researcher. So many researchers tend to plagiarize other researchers' plagiarize data, plagiarize content, plagiarize information. Then, so in order for them to publish, especially with this, with the rising presence of different kind of AI tools that can write manuscript for you within hours. Then, so researchers tend to like go there and just try to bring up a manuscript and some data. You know, AI will generate data for you, some data that never exist. So they tend to publish it. So that's another issue. So please, the next slide. So how can we address the challenges of ethics and research conduct? The first is education and training. So researchers need to be trained on ethics. So fortunately, my university, the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, they've actually incorporated the teachings of research ethics in our course. So ethics is actually, I think some university takes ethics as a course on its own. And the university that does these are actually not that common. So, but the Faculty of Public Health at the University of Ibadan, they are actually doing this, and it's actually a comprehensive one. So both the field work about ethics and the coursework about it, the two are being taught effectively. So that students we understand some of the ethical issues involved in research conduct. So another thing is transparency and data sharing. If you conduct a research, then you need to be transparent about your results. You need to share your results. You need to share the findings. Let people know what you get. Either the result is positive or negative, put it out. The purpose of research is not for you to always get a positive outcome. If you conduct a study and your result is actually negative, you need to let people know about it. So the purpose of research is that, yes, I actually make a progress, maybe in terms of methodology or in terms of the approach you take. It's not always about results. If you are looking for a particular expected outcome and you are not getting it, you don't need to hide your data, push it out so that people can also learn if there's any mistake you've made, so that others will learn and improve their own. So by doing that, you make a contribution. Contribution is not about you having the positive result every time. It can be a negative result, but make sure that, yes, I'm actually contributing. So the next is ethics reviewer committees and institutional review board oversight. So ethics reviewer committees and the IRB need to do their duties of reviewing some of the proposals being sent to them thoroughly. So they need to review it thoroughly to make sure that there is no harm posed to the research participants. So no harm is, so that the participants are not subjected to any harm or risk. If such research will pose a risk or harm to the participant, such a research should actually be should be altered, should be stopped. So it should be stopped and not put people at risk, all in the names of trying to get glory or trying to impress the world. Establishment of ethical guidelines and institutions. So our various institutions should also establish ethical guidelines. So there should be a kind of unit that will be in charge of monitoring some of the research that have been conducted, if they are in line with ethics. So the next one is implement measures to deal with unethical research conduct. We know that unethical research conduct can be minimized but cannot be eradicated. So in this sense, there should be a kind of disciplinary committees. I would even recommend that most of these ethical guidelines should be binded, because they are not legally binding. If they are legally binding, then people will not be performing unethical research, because the implication of unethical research is huge. It causes damages to people's lives, and it's actually affects a lot. So there should be some measures to deal with people performing unethical research. So the next one, please. So what is the importance of ethics and research? It promotes moral and social value. It promotes morals and social values. So people will know you for being honest in whatever you are doing, in your research conduct. They would always trust you, and they will always believe in you that this particular person is known for integrity, is known for being honest and stuff, and so on. So ensure the principal aim of research is achieved. So the principal aim of research is what? It's just to improve the overall health outcome, contributes to the society positively, and contributes to the economy, to the global world positively. So you want to make an impact, a positive impact, not a negative one. So that's the overall aim of any research that you are conducting. But if you are doing the research in a way that question your integrity, then definitely you are doing something wrong and you are contributing negatively to the economy. So increase public trust in health authorities. So if you are doing something right, if you are conducting a good research, then people will have trust in public health authorities. We've seen that in the case of COVID, even here in Nigeria, where people are actually rejecting the vaccine. The case that what actually happened in Kano with the Pfizer, we can see that. So if anybody take a vaccine to that particular region and tell people there that this is a vaccine for COVID, they will definitely ask themselves twice that do we need to collect this vaccine? What really happened when during the meningitis outbreak? This is what happened. Some of our children died after receiving this treatment. So increased, but if the Pfizer researchers have done the right thing, then the public trust in health authorities would have increased. So encourage moral support from local, national, and international funders. So that's also another importance of ethics in research. So if you are doing the right thing, then definitely you get more funding. Though if you are doing the wrong thing, you may get more funding. But once your integrity is dented, once it has been dented, then you should know that my funding, I can no longer get funding again. But if you do the right thing, people will recommend you. Okay, this particular researcher, this is what he or she is doing. You get more recommendation for what you are doing right. So promote highly essential value for required collaborative work. Everybody will want to work with a researcher that is known for integrity, a researcher that is known for being honest, a researcher that is transparent, and a researcher that can be trusted. So next slide. So what are the opportunities that we stand to gain if we perform research by adhering with the ethical standard? So the first is improve the health outcomes. I think I've explained this earlier, that if we do the research, then definitely we are improving the health outcomes of the population. That's public health research. So improve public trust. I've explained this too. Enhance quality and credibility of research findings. So the quality and the credibility of research findings will improve once we adopt and follow the principle of ethics. If you do it the right way, definitely quality and credibility will actually improve. So promote social justice and enhance innovation and creativity. Reduce epistemic injustice. So epistemic injustice is a kind of discrimination against people capacity, against people in their capacity as knower. So this is another concept entirely, but it helps to reduce the issue of epistemic injustice, in which some populations, the marginalized population, are not recognized for what they know. So they will be recognized for what they know if a credible research and information is being put out there by the researchers in that population. So the next, please. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, so ethics play an important role in ensuring that integrity and credibility of research is maintained. And we've explained some of the historical issues that led to development of some of these guidelines and ethical codes that are bounding research today. So some of these principles are highlighted. We have the Nuremberg Code, and we have the four principles that were developed after the Tuskegee Civilly study: the principle of benevolence, the principle of beneficence, maleficence, and then the justice, and the first one, which is the autonomy. Like, so people should enroll people in research, not at their own detriment. They should be able to like give informed consent. They should comply that they want to engage in this research. You don't force them into research. And make sure if you are conducting a research, you should try to know that this research will actually benefit these people. If it's not benefiting them, it's better for you to stop that research. If you are conducting a research and you know that this research will pose risk to the population during the process of conducting it, then it's better for you to stop. So, and make sure you get the informed consent from people in the language they understand. If I'm a native English speaker, okay, for instance, I'm a Nigerian and I understand Yoruba. So you are now presenting informed consent for me in English, and you are now inputting technical, all those scientific jargons in that informed consent. Then definitely that's not informed consent. It's another thing entirely. You write it in such a way that I will understand the content there. For instance, if you are conducting a study on HIV, mother-to-child transmission of HIV, and you are now using words like the replication of HIV, that's very bad. You can put growth instead of replication. If you are putting something like placebo, you should put sugar pill so that we understand it. You won't put, I don't know the meaning of placebo. So we should make sure that we do the right thing while conducting research so that our findings and the expected outcome will be meaningful to the population. So we must be aware of the opportunities in ethical research practices, like recommendation so that we'll be able to like get more grants for our research conduct, and so that in international, at the global level, we'll be recognized for what we are doing. So, and we should always remember that only through ethical research conduct that we can promote positive outcome at individual, community, and societal level. So the next slide, please. So, yes, I would like to show gratitude to my lecturers at the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, specifically Professor Ademola Anju and Dr. Oluwafemi Dikpeolu. So these people are actually, they are researchers, and their focus is on health promotion. So they actually inspired me to prepare this presentation slide because of their great lectures on ethics and ethics in research. So their interactive lectures in class on ethics have actually inspired me to prepare this presentation. So I express my gratitude to them, and so everyone that has listened to this lecture. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf, for this very informative presentation. We have one question here in the chat from Percival, and I would like to invite you to ask if you have any questions. And I think we should go back to the case, and then maybe leave the questions for the end. Does this, feels right? So.
Okay. Yes.
Or would you like to answer the question from Percival
Okay.
now?
Okay. I think I should do that. I should answer the question. So, since many journals often reject manuscripts with negative findings, would you agree that selective publications of results is a systemic issue rather than an individual research issue only? Well, we rejecting negative result rejection by journals. I think it's really something. It's not right. Yes, I'll put it that way. I don't think it's actually right, because if we understand the meaning of research, if we understand the meaning of research, then we will definitely know that it's not about positive results. Sincerely, during the process of you conduct, okay, for instance, I have a friend who was actually conducting a research on the use of lithium and rapamycin for the treatment of dementia in adults. So he's trying to look if he's trying to check for the dose response rate for using lithium and rapamycin for the treatment of dementia in adults, the aged ones. So at the end of the day, he got a negative result. And he told me that, okay, this result is negative. How will what do you recommend? Should I submit this to my supervisor? I'm even scared of putting this study out there. I told him, you getting a negative result should not be an issue for you. Sure, you've done your best. There's a particular okay, before you are able to achieve a toxicity, because the result of this finding later led to toxicity, in which if that level of dose is given to a patient, then the patient, it will worsen the condition of such patient. So I just told him, the next thing you can do is to learn from your mistake. If there is anything you've done wrong in the process of your research, then it will serve as a kind of guide. It will serve as a guide for other researchers that are coming before you to learn and improve on that area. So we are not really, if you try to, okay, if you try to like manipulate data in the process of your research, and you try to like paint your data positively, you achieve your result and you publish that findings. If you decide to like focus on that treatment and use it for people with dementia, definitely we're actually doing a wrong thing to the society, and we are contributing negatively to the development of our society. So it's better for you to report data exactly as it is. So I think that's just it.
Thank you, Yusuf. Very nice.
Okay, I think another question is here. In communication,
Exactly.
the goal is to simply simplify jargons for the masses. How do you ensure that you don't get lost in translation in the science community while explaining to the non-science? Okay, fine, that's true. If you decide to like translate your informed consent in some language, definitely you are going to lose some information. But what you can do is, for instance, if you want to explain for a research participant that doesn't understand the language in which you have, okay, if your informed consent is in English and you are trying to translate it into the language that the participant will understand, but you feel that some of the information will be lost. So the only thing you can do is to invite a close relative of that your participant. You explain to that person, possibly if the person is an English speaker, if the person is someone that understands English, you try to explain to the person and then let him or her know that this is what the research is all about. So the person can actually in the presence of that person, although at times there may be issue with confidentiality, but if you are trying to avoid that, you need to sit down one-on-one with the person, with your research participant. Just try to like explain to the person without you even translating it. You don't need to translate it, but you read to the person. Then you try to like explain every bit of information in that in your informed consent form to the person. Because if you are translating to another language, you may lose some vital information. But mind you just need to break down those jargons to the person. Like I've said, that if you want to explain terms like placebo, you can actually replace it with a sugar pill so that the person will understand. What's like HIV transmission, you can explain to the person in the local language, so that the person will get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf. I'll keep my camera off so don't disrupt. So maybe we should go back, since it's already like almost 6 p.m.
Okay.
We should go back to the
sending this. Thank you.
To the case, right? Let me share. Yeah. Can you see it?
Okay, yes. Okay.
So
thank you so
those
much.
are the questions.
Okay, thank you so much. So
Maybe
without wasting time, okay, without wasting time on this, I think we understand the case study. Like, I just want to know what we feel about this case study, like what the professor did, and is it ethical or not? And what is even the ethical, what are the unethical issues that the professor has done? So I think we've read it. So I wouldn't want to be leading the conversation here. I want it to be a kind of interactive, not very long, but it will be a short interactive section. So.
Yes, so I have my hands raised. Thank you so much for your presentation, Yusuf. I've benefited a lot from your extensive explanation about research ethics. And this is also something I've been learning a lot in my master's in vaccinology, especially in the area of clinical trials. And I think this is a very important topic. So to talk about the case study that was presented to us, first, I think it is very clear to mention that Professor Johnson's research lifestyle is highly unethical, and he should be punished for this kind of unethical practices in research. And the reason I have said this is because of how clearly Mr. Karanga has proven this. So first, Mr. Karanga was able to identify that, he falsifies data, which is something he discussed to us, part of unethical research practices. So falsification of data, which means that, you are, you have like your data and you are manipulating it to give you something that you find more pleasant. So this is bad. And one of the reasons why it is also bad is because these are funded projects. So I believe the funders has given this money to actually achieve the goals and objective of the research is conducting. So it's also going against, the essence why they've given him this fund by falsifying the data. And one thing I also consider unethical is because from what Mr. Karanga found out, some other professors may have some nudge about what Professor Johnson has been doing. but because of the fact that he's one of highly funded researchers in the faculty and even in the university, they can't speak against it. And this also talks about power imbalance. So power imbalance is also something that should be checked in the academia, such that everyone can actually challenge people's practice, and without having to face the consequence of the backlash that may come from that, regardless of whichever position they are. So when people are doing something wrongly, they should face the outcome. But I appreciate the way Mr. Karanga had done it, such that he was able to bring sufficient evidence forward, and also how the university has been able to take action. But I think they didn't take more stringent action. It should actually be highly investigated, and more actions should be taken. And I think going forward, just like we've also learned from your presentation about how several ethical principles and standards have come to be, such as the Nuremberg Code, the university should also invest in setting up research ethics committee that would not only review the inception of projects, but also the outputs of projects as well, time to time, of every researchers and academics in their universities. So this is what I have to say about this particular case study. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much for that, your insightful interpretation of what actually happened with Mr. Kuranga and Professor Johnson. So thank you. So I think you've actually pointed out the major ethical issues in what Professor Johnson has done. So falsification of falsification of data, which is actually not ethical. So, and if we take a look at that, Professor Johnson might not be the first time Professor Johnson will be doing such. And taking a look at that, it would have put many people in harm, because this is a medical institution, and some of the research, if we take a look at the research Mr. Professor Johnson conducted, it is a public health research. And you can imagine the implication on the health of the population. So, and he has been doing that, he might have been doing that for a while. So most of his, the issue of power imbalance that you also mentioned is something that needs to be, something that needs attention. So his colleagues actually know what he's doing. They know what he has been doing, but they cannot challenge him. They find it difficult to challenge him. So that's also an issue. So if there is an ethical, if there is a disciplinary committee set aside for ethical research investigation, then everybody will be able to go there to report any of the researchers that fail to comply with the ethical standard, and such person will be dealt with and disciplined. So thank you so much for that. So we have so many questions here, but due to time,
I also want to add something important. So I also feel like, talking about his research, since they found out that he's falsifying results, so one has to look back on his previously published outputs, his publications, and I think it should be retracted as well, because there's every likelihood that these publications have wrong results, wrong data, and as well as wrong conclusions. So they have to be checked and retracted if investigated and found that they are not research that has been conducted in an ethical manner, so that it won't inform science in the wrong way. As you mentioned, this is a public health research that would inform scientific policies inform other areas of research that other researchers will be conducting from different institutions as well.
Okay, thank you so much. So before we continue on this, there was this issue, the speaker that asked a question regarding how we interpret results, how we interpret informed consent. So the person also raised the issue that I also think he or she wrote, and I quote, I also think that it may be important to involve communication or language experts in process of translation. The issue about research ethics is actually so should I say is a sensitive one. Like, you know, when you are doing a kind of research, you don't want the third party to be involved. Like, if you are doing a research, at times you need to keep the confidentiality and the privacy of your research participants, and you don't need to bring a third party. So except if your research participant allows you to bring in such a person. So the privacy of that your research participant needs to be protected. So in some cases, you don't bring a language expert. It's you and your research participant. But if he or she allows it, then you can bring the language translator. Thank you.
Can I just add to that conversation?
Okay, thank you, please.
Okay, so I think the point I sought to share was the translation of the informed consent. Now, informed consent is a document that you use to solicit the participation of the research respondent in your study. Now, if you have technical jargons and some words that are in the informed consent that the people will not understand, it's always a good idea to have technical language experts to help translate the document. And in that case, when your research assistants go to deliver the informed consent, they may actually be obliged, they could actually read the informed consent document in the language of the research respondent verbatim, so that it doesn't lose the import of the translation. That's the point I'm making. It is not that at the time that you are apply the informed consent, which is written in English, you are now trying to translate it into maybe Yoruba or Swahili at the time of delivering the consent, and then you now pull in somebody else to translate. That's not the conversation. It's that in the process of developing the research, you involve these communication language experts because you know the language, the dominant languages in the study area, and you know what the people would want, or you would expect the language you expect to speak besides English, so that then by the time you are bringing the informed consent document to them, it is in the language that the people can understand, and the words and the content in that informed consent document can be more relatable to them. Over.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I think I get your point now. So, and I really agree with your point. So thank you so much for that. Any other? Okay. So we have so many questions there, and I think so let's just jump to the question 3. What damages can occur to the scientific establishment, the funder, the students, and the general public from the action of Professor Johnson? And what would be a fair judgment for him? Let's put it that way. What would be a fair judgment for Professor Johnson? So we can actually discuss this.
Yeah, if anybody feels like comment or
Okay, so
discussing this further.
I would I would try to answer the question. So in my opinion, I think the damages that can occur to the scientific establishment, the funder, and the students. So I'll take it one by one because I think there are different damages. So for the scientific establishments, starting with, I think one of the severe damage that may occur to them is lack of confidence in the research that is being in the output of their research. So people will stop believing the results of their research, and that would have some negative implication on other researchers in the scientific establishment, of course. And as the funder, I think what would happen also is that, and I think the damage that has already occurred is that their money has gone into falsified research. So, which means that they've lost their money because they didn't achieve its intended objective, as I said earlier. And also, this was not a good return on investments in their own part as well. For the students, I also feel it can tell on their reputation as well, judging from the fact that they've graduated or they are studying in a university or under a professor that has been sent to be unethical in his research. And for the general public, I think it is more severe in the sense that, interventions that have been done with regards to output of Professor Johnson research are clearly not the best because of the falsified research and the unethical practices is undertaken. So there's every likelihood that every outcome of this research to the public is affecting the public in a way. Perhaps not proper intervention are not being put into place, or even negative intervention are put into place. So, which means that all of the interventions from Professor Johnson's research has to be checked and maybe stopped as soon as possible. So with regards to the second question, what would be a fair judgment? I think this would be from an angle of Professor Johnson taking action for his unethical practices. So he should be clearly fined and sanctioned for these actions. And I also believe he should, pay for whatever damage he has caused as well, and as well as, return the funder's money because he has clearly gone against their terms of contract as well. Thank you.
Hello, Vanessa here. Thank you. I would like to, say since we are a bit after time, it's already like 6:10. I would like to ask if anybody else would like to comment or ask anything to do it, so we can wrap it up to don't fatigue 2 hours of Zoom. So please, if anybody else have anything to comment or ask, let's try to wrap it up in like maybe 10 more minutes or something like that. Is that okay?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Good evening, somewhere.
Okay, good evening. I wasn't sure anyone was hearing me.
I can hear you.
Hey, Samuel.
Okay.
Good to hear you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Yusuf, and to everyone who is in the house, Dr. Mona, Vanessa, Iola. It's nice seeing you again. It's been a while. So I'll just make a quick comment. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for the subject. It's a very important one. And I think it It's something that everyone needs to continue to keep in mind as we move on this research journey. Whether you stay in academia or you move out of academia, there are always going to be rules and laws, and it's only for our own good if we stay within the confines of the norms, the rules, and the regulations of our practitioner. But we should also bear in mind, I think, while I very much appreciate the subject and the discussions that has been raised, I would also want to point out the fact that eh, academia or research as a whole, there is a certain level of pressure that is put upon researchers to actually turn in positive results, right? And so it's like there's an unwritten rule that lays emphasis on bringing out positive results when you conduct research. And that places, it puts pressures not only on seasoned researchers, but even on young researchers who are just starting. Because for you to gain relevance in the field you're practicing in, if you want to become a force to reckon with, they expect you to advance knowledge positively. And one thing we do not very much give room for is what we call field research in science. And so most people believe that if you conduct a research and the results of the hypothesis you actually proposed are opposite the proposed outcome or the expected outcome, they feel that that research has failed. Rather than learning from it, in almost every other field, it's expected that if you try something and results are negative, you try again. But in academia, not so many articles want to publish, negative results. They will tell you, okay, if you tried it and it failed, try again. And when you get positive outcomes, you can contact us and we'll publish the results and things like that. And especially if this research is coming from researchers in the global south, right, where you're even struggling to be able to meet up to the requirements for publishing in some of these reputable journals. And so all of these pressures, when you think of it as a researcher, all of these places a certain amount of pressure on researchers to try to tilt the scale of their results to satisfy the requisite that people are expecting, right? This unspoken rule, the requisition, everything. Because, if it was acceptable that if I conduct research and I find something, if I was expecting a positive outcome and I get a negative outcome, I can still publish that article as it is and say, when I started out, I intended to find that there was going to be this association or this correlation between this factor and this particular result or whatsoever. And what I've found out is that instead of finding a positive association, I'm finding a negative association. A negative association should be considered a good thing, even if it's different from what every other person has published prior. And all of that. So I feel going forward, if it's possible, we need to also amplify our voice to push this discussion so that we're not just thinking on the positives, the good results. We should very much be open to failure. And when I say failure, I do not mean that failure in the sense that because your result is not good, you failed. I mean, negative results should be considered success, even in science. Negative results that are very much opposite to the norm that has been defined in that field does not mean that researcher has failed. And so it should give room for rethink. Science is a field that is not static, right? We always say that science is not static and that it evolves on a daily basis. So I think that would also help to reduce pressure on young and early career researchers so that they do not feel that by all means they must give something positive. And so that's what I just want to contribute. But it's been a very interesting one. I really appreciate it. It's a never-ending conversation. People continue to have it, but as much as possible, we should try to make sure that whatever we set out to accomplish in research is what we report. We should not try to shift. I've seen people who maybe they expected this and then they try to edit their statistical analysis. They try to shift it a little bit so that they find. I think it's good to just leave it as it is, whether it is positive or negative, and let's see what comes here from. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. You just said what I just wrote in the chat. I mean, this is like a forever discussion. We are just like instigating to start here, and we'll be doing that within our social media and emails and through our next meetings and, as a community. I'm sorry for the image. It's just impossible to to you know, control that. So yeah, so Mona, I don't know if you would like it. I mean, we have a few, it was great to have you all here. It was very insightful. We could even think about starting maybe, you know, a working group in this thematic. If you are interested, it's just together in our, you know, WhatsApp group or by email. And if you have anything else to share, please do it. I would like to just remind that MRN will be opening very soon the inscriptions for next cycle. We will be communicating this by social media, and also if you are interested, if you're not here yet in your Eastern, you can get in contact like directly with us. It will be in June, the opening, mid-June, and it will be open for 10 days. Yes, and if Mona would like to add something, please do it.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to each and every one of you. Yola, Percival, Tessa, and Menzi, welcome. And Samuel, thank you also for your contributions. And we also had previously Joe joining us. So thank you so much for your active participation in today's meeting on research ethics. And actually, the discussions and presentation of Tajuddin Yusuf is incredibly insightful and highlighting this important topic of the ethical practice in our research endeavor, particularly in light of the advancing field of artificial intelligence, this particular area that I'm really interested in. So, Tajuddin Yusuf, I really appreciate your powerful presentation. We are really proud to have you with us as an executive research manager of this MRN space. And your expertise and profound insights have actually deepened our understanding of the challenges, opportunities, history, and much more about the research ethics, not just from one facet, but from multiple facets. And I encourage all of you to reflect on Tajuddin Yusuf's valuable contribution in research publication and also through his presentation of today. And as we move forward, and as Vanessa has said, that we are going to open the next MRN cycle in mid-June for just 10 days, we aim at recruiting researchers who are really serious ones, who really want to contribute to make the future of Africa research in a better place, and also in Latin America and the global south, this area. Because we believe that the indigenous knowledge system has a lot to fertilize with the current methodologies and the recent advances of using the AI tools even. So please join us for our upcoming activities and meetings planned, and we will provide you with so many opportunities to learn, collaborate, and exchange knowledge. And we remind you of our Nova Hub MRN space. It's very active actually, and you have the chance to engage more with researchers from different parts of the world. So lastly, together, let's continue to promote research excellence and foster positive change in our communities. Thank you again for your active participation in today's meeting, and we look forward to our upcoming meetings, inshallah. Thank you. Back to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Mona. So if anybody else would like to say a word to wrap it up, let's keep moving forward together and getting stronger. Yeah, thank you, Yola, for coming. Samuel, Percival, Menzi, miss you, Guy.
Okay.
We give thanks. We give thanks. Thank you, everyone. It was positive. It was great listening. Very informative.
Yeah.
We give
And
thanks.
we are going to be sharing the recording too. And let's keep talking about this. It's such an important issue. Thank you very much for coming and for participating. We'll see
Shukran.
soon. Bye.
Bye-bye, Vanessa.